Welcome to the Young Crones Cafe, where you can get a magic brew full of all sorts of information, both witchy and practical.
Grab a cup of coffee and join us. I'm Elizabeth, a wordsmith.
And I'm Dave, a modern-day sage.
We are going to talk about various witchcraft and life topics from a slightly more mature perspective, at least most of the time.
Thanks for joining us.
Picture an oscillating sine wave as it moves from its lowest to highest point, continuing down again. At its lowest is the winter solstice, with the peak of dark energy and the beginnings of the return of light energy. As you travel up, the times of Candlemas begin, continuing across the first midpoint of the vernal or spring equinox. As you continue to rise, the times of Beltane begin, and you move upwards to the summer solstice, with the peak of light energy and the beginnings of the return of dark energy. Moving down the wave, the times of Love Mass begin, and one continues on downward to the second midpoint and the autumnal equinox. Still continuing down, the times of Samhain begin, and eventually you end up at a new lowest point on the sine wave and another winter solstice. So let's talk about where we are on the wave tonight and what we are doing in our practices. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Oh, good. Happy the start of the times of Samhain, I guess.
Happy water. Wow, what an amazing... I know we'll get to it, but I had an amazing ritual and asked for connection to water, and suddenly over the last couple of days, I'm pretty close to overwhelmed with all the connection I have to water. So if you'll forgive the horrible pun, I'm sort of bubbling over.
Well, that works. It really does. I mean, that's the whole point of these Ingress, Congress, Egress rituals. And we'll start with Ingress because that's the opening, the inviting in. When Sue and I kind of worked with this, we came years ago, we were involved with somebody who was much more esoterically inclined than we were. And were exposed to one particular type of Ingress, Congress, Egress ritual that never worked for us. And we kept the words Ingress, Congress, Egress, and kind of figured out it's like having a party. Ingress is you've sent out the invitations. You're doing the inviting. Congress is the party, and the Egress is kind of the cleaning up afterwards.
It's so interesting, and of course in the background, I kind of was aware of you and Susie developing it that way, and I never really got deeply connected with the Ingress, Congress, Egress. There was just some esoteric reference and some stuff like that just didn't really resonate with me. I really have gotten comfortable with the idea that the path for me is a somewhat literal thing. If you can remember way back in the 70s, there was a David Carradine TV serial called Kung Fu, which was
I do, actually.
horrible for its cultural appropriation and everything else. It's not a TV show that would last anymore, but in it there was sort of the fool or the wanderer that had these encounters, and each encounter had a lesson for him as the wanderer and for the person that he encountered along the way. And I really sort of, with the path, kind of grabbed onto that model and glommed onto it. So for me, I understand that the meeting, the collaborating, and the wishing well for me, or as from a Dungeons and Dragons point of view, if I'm walking down the path and I happen upon a cabin, well, I'm going to take a look at the place, and that's all part of meeting the person there in Ingress. And then I'm going to sit and have a meal with them and whatnot. That's the Congress, and then hopefully part of my egress or my parting is that somehow both wanderer and host have somehow become enriched. That to me is just sort of the Ingress, Congress, egress adaptations that I use.
Hey, that's great. Because that's what I think we evolved into.
Well, and now knowing and understanding from, I hadn't realized at the time when I was observing it but not understanding it, that this is, for example, right now we've just, part of what we're going to talk about is sort of setting aside or saying goodbye to that great meal that we had with the element of air and knowledge for the last few months. And now we're going to spend a few months in an encounter with the element of water.
Exactly.
What really resonate with me once I figured it out was this isn't a goodbye. I am going to have another experience with the element of air during the time that we just had next year. And it will be, each time it will be, hello, old friend. And each time I will have more and more of an intimate relationship with this particular element. So doing this Ingress the other night and recognizing that, yeah, I've been sort of hyper-focused on the element of air in a lot of my workings and practices and stuff recently over the last few weeks, and it's felt natural and made sense to me. I performed this ritual and did some of my own thought work in the process, and like I said, suddenly I have this almost uncanny connection. The old adage, be careful what you pray for. Wow, do I have a wonderful connection with water. And I think part of it is because it was this time last year
that you started.
I really started to understand that this isn't a one and done thing. It's during this season, I hang out with this pal.
Mostly. The other ones are still there.
Absolutely.
They're still part of the cast and characters of everything that goes on around us. It's just easier to connect with one.
Well, and I, at least for the past few weeks, have found a lot of my own personal power in air.
Mm-hmm.
And I am already imagining and seeing how that transition will change the way that I see things, how it'll change the way that I do my magic. You know me being autumn in the mid-Atlantic or wherever you are out there. I hope you have an autumn with the falling leaves kind of place that you live or can at least visit, because there is something really spiritual this time of year with walking down a river, walking a path down a riverbank and just breathing.
Yes.
And of course, then the next day, because I had done this particular ritual, the next day I took the same walk and it was all about the water and the flow and recognizing that one of the things that direct observations that I made is walking back from my friend's house this afternoon. There's plenty of leaves on the sidewalk. And I'm looking at the trees, and what I'm realizing is water. This is that time of year where they're sort of drawing their resources down into the roots. Water is becoming more sparse at the tips, and this is all about building that conservation of life until the next spring and so on and so forth. So I'm starting to see water sort of underlying most things.
Of what's happening right now. Yeah, that's kind of how we figured out what goes with what season. And it's kind of out of order for a lot of people, when they look at it. But we looked at our environment and what we related to and so on and kind of developed, okay, Candlemas is fire, obviously, but it's that whole creative process that begins to really come to the fore in spring.
Well, beginnings, yeah.
Yeah, and then Earth is obviously Beltane because everything is getting fucking green around here again.
Or in gray in our case.
Well, you know what I mean. May, by June anyway, we got green. And then we seem to have in August and that time of love mass, more wind around. It used to be our windier season.
Well, and
but it's still windier.
Winnowing the wheat from the chaff, and there's And the fascinating thing is you can always find dozens of examples that will fit your own sort of presupposed conclusion. It's just a matter of coming up with the right combination of them that stick with you enough where now I always think of it that way.
Yes, and you have to look at where you are too, because we say, yes, it's water season. If you're in Phoenix, Arizona, you're kind of in the dry spell, so it might be fire and mass and heat. And same thing, the Southern Hemisphere goes opposite with us with seasons. You have to figure out what fits your location.
Sure.
Because you can always switch around those 4 seasonal rituals to make it work for you.
Well, I know in your particular case, you have difficulty visualizing. Just for the folks out there that need to kind of see it and be able to look at a model of it, I'll remind folks that you can go to twoyoungcrones.com/solar cycle wave chart. It's all one word, just solar cycle wave chart. And I have that particular file pulled up and I use it as a reference in conversation or whatnot. And if you're able to see that, you can see how, especially down where we're talking about these seasonal times of Candlemas, times of Beltane, times of Lothmas, or now we're beginning into the times of Samhain and with water. You can see those blocks down there as seasonal blocks and understand that they can be repositioned or moved around for what fits your path.
Exactly, which is cool. So let's talk a little bit about Ingress and the inviting in real quick. Sue and I figured out, that it was going to be a cycle of 3 rituals, and we kind of needed a date or a standard kind of way of setting them all up.
Okay.
So Ingress, we kind of settled on it's the dark night of the moon, that real middle date, pretty much. So you have that 3-day period where you can fudge it if you need to, or, whatever. But that 3-day period before the date of Congress. Congress, because there are a lot of practicing witches and pagans out there, our Congress dates all relate to kind of the standard pagan celebration date. Like Congress this year will be, in this time of season, will be Halloween. Because of all the energy that's been put into it over the years of people practicing on that date.
Sure.
Marking it as something important.
So Congress is on Samhain.
The official Samhain.
Or actually Halloween, yeah.
October 31st, yes. And then...
Wait a minute. The Ingress is the new moon prior to.
Closest to the date. Sometimes now it's the beginning of the month, so we have several weeks. It has been as close as the couple of days before. So sometimes you scramble. But in general, you got a couple of weeks in there to get used to the idea, okay, we're starting a new season. Congress is on whatever date. Candlemas is February 2nd. Beltane is I think it's like the 1st or 2nd of May, right in there. You know what I'm saying? So they all match up. And then Egress is when the sun, in this case it's Scorpio, enters 15 degrees of Scorpio. It's just always worked for us. I know it's a weird calculation. Just go with it. You're chortling at me.
And I call the Christians weird.
Hey, look at how they figure out Easter.
That's exactly what I'm pointing to.
Okay. Tell me that's not a pagan calculation. It's the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox every year. That's why Easter floats around. So it's usually about a week after Congress, give or take.
I can work with that.
Oh, good. I'm glad you can work with that because we're not changing it now. Too long and hard to get it together.
Well, from my point of view on my path, what I know is a day or two before any of these major holidays happen, I have a friend that'll remind me, hey, it's going to be so-and-so, right?
Yeah. I wonder who that is. I don't know. But I am so thrilled you got so much out of the English. You and I had made plans to get together and celebrate together, and then you had a sinus thing and I had a cold thing.
We both
So
have
we did it
days of life.
individually, but by the same token, we still really enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah. I had, if now's the time to talk about it, the core of and I was going to mention just in the ritual itself, there was a period in there before the water ritual itself where, man, I could almost, the repetition and the meter of the way it was written, we call it the elements. We want to swirl in the smoke of the new ideas. We want to be warmed. I could so identify and hear a chant of murmured voices somewhere reading that along with me.
Me too.
I attribute that to ancestors.
I do too. And the old gods.
But yeah, I feel like these are words of power.
I think so.
And I did this water ritual, and I tend to hyper visualize. I'm kind of the other end of that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, or for me, as a part of the ritual, I was meditating on water at a molecular level in me, in my body, and understanding how critical and important water was.
It's
of all things, being an old pothead, I coughed. And I saw the ripples go across the water, and I realized that there is water vapor in my breath in every single time I exhale.
Well, when you do
always that connection of water, so that it was coming out of my cells and through my lungs and through the room to the bowl of water that had already been blessed. So that water to me had already been connected to all the water in the oceans, and literally all the water in the all that is. So the water that's on the icy moons of wherever was part of that chain between the cells in my very body and all water. And I had sort of a profound spark moment there. So much so that I actually had some metaphysical discomfort coming out of the ritual. I just got myself so deeply imbued in it, hence the extra walk down the river. But not for nothing, I have Mother Nature's cure right there with me.
Yes, and hopefully the bread helped too.
What's that?
Hopefully the bread of Housel helped as well, which is why we do Housel, so that we can start to come back from those deeply moving metaphysical experiences.
I did it backwards. I ate the bread and then went for the walk.
Well, that works. They're all the same.
I did save some that I will, as is my tradition with the bread and the juice. I will be putting some out on the back deck for the birds and the critters and the ancestors.
And Venus loci and all those wonderful creatures that live in your backyard.
Yep.
But Sue and I have convinced that we're not antagonistic to.
No, we have almost Disneyland out there with the wildlife coming up to us. Yeah.
Oh, I know. But the whole idea is, like you said, the working for this ritual starts where we literally light the air incense from Love Mass time. Mm-hmm. We give thanks. We acknowledge the end of the times of knowledge and perspective. We watch and wait as the seasons turn for your time to come again. We give thanks for the aid of element of air and what you have taught us. Mm-hmm. Because we do learn lessons. Like you said,
I reflected on how much I have gained by spending at least a part of my focus recently on air over the last few weeks. So
I agree.
Like I said, I'm really excited and looking forward to water, but go figure, it's me.
I know, I am too. I seem to, because this was the first one we did with the Ingress Congress Ingress for Samhain.
Okay.
Sort of coalesced into, okay, this is connected to water. And then it was just this three rituals, and then it sort of expanded into, damn, it's not just this little time around Samhain, it's the whole season. And it expanded from there,
Sure.
processes, and how are we going to keep our focus on it? And we came up with a different time.
More than just one day on the calendar, and something that we can practice and,
and work on.
The different explorations and whatnot that are involved with Congress too.
Oh, exactly. Well, the rituals for each of the elements, while there is a meditative quality, but it's more, instead of visualizing, it's more about feeling, and there is always some sort of physical thing that you see in front of you, and that's for the lady in the corner who doesn't visualize. So
right.
For having that cup or chalice or whatever you want to call it of water in front of me allows me to create those connections that you just painted so beautifully in word pictures. You know what I'm saying? I can't.
Absolutely. I just want to mention to you, because it's one of the few sacred things that I've been able to keep. In my bowl of water was actually a little piece of blue goldstone that I had gotten from you. So
yes, and you will need that for Congress. So I'm glad you know where it is.
Yep, absolutely.
But the idea is the original water ritual. There is a witchy writer called Keithorn Coyle, and is more of a traditionalist, I guess, than we are in a lot of ways, and Wiccan in others. But she had kind of a cool water type ritual where you were connecting with the different parts of you and your god self, and we kind of adapted it for the initial water ritual. And then we discovered, well, if we do this over and over like we do it, it changes a little bit for Congress and Ingress, but its bare bones are the same. We have something that allows us to begin, as you said, that process of connection, not just for the season, but in general, because you have to start somewhere. If you're new to witchcraft and you're starting to connect to the element of air or water, in this case, water, because that's the season we're on, very often it's an awareness. All of a sudden you start seeing water everywhere.
Well, yeah, because the first and most obvious question is, well, what does that mean to be connected with water?
It just starts with an awareness. You start
struggle when you're trying to find your own definitions and your own meanings. That's
exactly
why it's a path.
Exactly. And then, like the next year over, it's more than just awareness. The connection deepens. And the more you cycle through this times of over and over, it's
well, like I'm saying, this time I've kind of formed a cosmology, so to speak, where I can connect from the water molecules in my cells out to those water molecules on the icy moons of wherever. And now that I have that, it's sort of like having an extra superpower or an extra thing, in that I will always know now that I can connect to the element of water in that way.
Yes.
And it's a new skill for me. And it took last year of studying water and meditating on water and understanding water for me to be able to process that and understand it to the degree I did this week.
Exactly. And I'm so thrilled to hear that. It's kind of neat when Sue and I, it's hearing validation for the work that Sue and I did.
Sure.
To get this stuff down, not only for ourselves, but on paper, written out so that other people could go in and use it and have their own unique experiences of the path and the rituals and all the things we do. So thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome.
Sitting here quietly grinning away. I don't
deserve to feel good about it. It was good work.
Well, yeah, but it was hard work too. And sometimes when you were doing it, there were points where we're like, do we really want to keep fucking doing this to ourselves?
Hey, but look at all the joy and the energy we've exchanged through it.
I know, and it's not just you and me. I know there are other people out there, because I've seen that people have bought our books here and there, and they like our monographs. And hopefully there's some other people in the universe listening to us talk at each other each other.
Do I need to do it like who is it? Dave's not here. Mic check and just call out and say, if there's another human being out there listening, for God's sake, please send me an email and let me know that this is getting outside the wall.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I am Dave at youngcronescafe.com. And I love you.
That's youngcronescafe.com, and it's right back at everybody. I know in my heart of hearts people are listening because,
Sure.
You just have to accept that on faith. It's, one of those kind of like, okay, I know genus loci exists. It doesn't mean I've actually seen one.
And the other side of this is, is it necessary that I have a listener when I'm speaking my truth to the universe?
No, because somebody will find it later when they need it.
Right.
It's just nice every once in a while.
Just remember that every time you F-bomb, it's on the internet. It's forever, baby.
Oh, I know. But you know what I mean. But I think that's kind of where we are with our solar and cross-quarter times. We're heading into Samhain, which is going to be an interesting night.
Well, and not for nothing, it's also given me, here again, I go back to the whole one-day wonder things, but it's given me something to dwell on and think about with purpose between my equinox and my solstice.
And
I mean, I've got some clay. I've got some stuff that I can work with. And so it gives me a focus that I can have every day, not just on certain days on the calendar. And that's what's important to it, as far as it being part of my path.
I think so. And I think that's enough information for people to digest for a while, as you and I are both kind of bubbly today.
Hey, it's just great. It's great dark moon energy.
That too. So with that being said, stay tuned for our next segment, where we're going to delve a little bit into the dark times of the moon energy what's floating around this week too.
My favorite moons.
I know.
Like the solar cycle's sine wave, the energy of the moon also moves in a cycle, from the dark times of the moon through its waxing to the nights of the full moon, and through its waning and back around again. The dark times of the moon and the nights of the full moon are each a 3-night period around the astronomical observation. The energies of the moon shift in ways that are similar to the solar cycle, but over a monthly time frame instead of a yearly.
And isn't it appropriate that the lunar cycle where we are right now, we're just coming out of the dark times of the moon? Because we just had Ingress, which we said we celebrate on the dark moon.
Yep.
So it kind of, any dark moon celebration kind of got superseded by Ingress.
Well, as far as me sitting and doing anything ritually for this dark moon, you're correct it's true in that I spent that night doing some of that Ingress ritual. That being said, though, for me now, what it has become is any time that I notice and recognize that it's a new moon or a dark moon, however you want to describe it, I just picture that the old analogy to me of the big boulder in a river, and how the sun is just constantly pouring out energy and energy and energy. It's how we live. But there's a certain amount of noise to that when I can feel like I'm on the backside of the planet, I'm in sort of the lee of the
noise.
The noise river or all of that energy. And when the moon is dark, then not even its reflection, light from the sun. And so to me, it's the quietest energy time. And to me, that immediately means I can listen closer for stuff that I normally wouldn't hear in the noise.
Oh, that's it.
So it's a contemplative, reflective, receptive kind of It's a heavy metal song or a heavy metal concert between songs.
Yes.
When sometimes the crowd just takes a deep breath, and you can feel the energy of the entire room. Take that deep breath. Mm-hmm. That's what it is for me anytime there's a dark moon or a new moon. So 3 or 4 different times during that particular day, just knowing that I had that
break.
That break, yeah. It's another analog to it is being an avid bicycle commuter. Eventually, you're going to get caught in the rain. It's part of riding a bicycle. And God bless underpasses. Because there are days when, as a bicyclist, you just need that underpass for 15 or 20 minutes to just get your stuff dry.
And start over again, yes, before
crying and ride back out into the rain.
Just don't pick one of those with the signs here in our town where it says, warning may flood.
Yeah.
Rainstorm, so let's not pick one of those underpasses to park.
Right.
That thing, I don't wish to hear you drowned.
I usually don't like to go to the down-in ones in my bicycle. There's just...
Yeah. We seem to have several of those around here. But
anyway, you're right. The new moon was superseded by, we used an Ingress ritual, and boy, did I get an awful lot of connection out of it. I think partly because of you guys selecting to have it happen on a new moon when the noise is least.
Yes, and I love you saying receptive, because we think of the full moon as full, like the real energy, like outward putting for big magic or whatever, that sort of outward projective energy.
Right.
And that's how Sue and I see light and dark energy, as light energy is more projective and dark energy is more receptive.
Well, and coming from my own sort of, self-created animist views from the past and whatnot, mm-hmm. there was a pretty long period in my life where I used to refer to that dark moon or new moon as the womb moon.
There you go.
It was where all of those, at least the sort of magic that I was doing at the time, that was when you planted seeds on the womb moon, and on the full moon was when you reaped fruit.
Well, supposedly, depending on how long you were doing magic for. Yeah, I would agree. However, for us, because it's the most receptive time, mm-hmm. the dark moon offers us different gifts, things we need to kind of contemplate, or your planting of the seed, as you put it. And the moon kind of encourages different energies for us. For Sue and I, we discovered when we actually started doing dark nights of the moon rituals regularly.
Well, you make a distinction of each of the 13 dark nights of the moon during a year. Each has its own characteristics or correspondences because you followed them through astrology, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't always balance out that there's 12 different ones. We literally look up on our phases of the moon calendar, okay, the moon is what? This month when it's dark nights of the moon, and it seems to fit. Now, here's a perfect example. The real middle, it's that 3-day period. The middle date when we did Ingress, Libra, balance.
Okay.
It's an air sign. So here we are saying goodbye to working with air. And we're pausing at that. We just passed the equinox, which was all about balance. Mm-hmm. So the dark moon is giving us that gift of balance to carry into the times of Samhain.
Nice.
Exactly. So that's kind of where we go with it. And we kind of came up with about 2 or 3 words for each of the signs of the zodiac that seem to be the strongest characteristics, I guess, that we associate with each one.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And when we went around from dark moon to dark moon, we would look it up and say, okay, and what are we getting? And of course, Sue and I, because I'm a rock person, I always had a rock, and we would create a touchstone as part of the ritual.
Okay.
To carry with us through the month as a reminder that this was the gift of the month, as it were. And you and I are going to start doing that again because I have rocks.
Well, and the last that you and I had practiced together, we were still doing touchstones. It's just that I was wearing them in my little
And we'll get back to that.
my single necklace.
Yeah,
Which I'm blessed to be able to say after the surgery and everything else, I'm back to being able to wear this.
Oh, good. That's a plus.
So, yeah, I get my little juju kit back on my heart.
Yeah, but, so we will start doing that more frequently because I hate to say this, I will go and I tend to buy rocks pictures even called to me, and I'll get the rock and then it'll arrive and I'll take it out and it will tell me what it's for. So we have Dark Nights of the Moon rocks ready.
Okay.
You're warned. You and I used to joke that
word for it.
You and I used to joke that Sue's purse had become a lethal weapon because that's where she kept all the rocks.
Yep, she was another rock lady.
Oh yeah, she clanked.
I wouldn't go that far.
The purse clanked, okay? Believe me, if somebody ever tried to mug her, that they would have either fallen over with the weight of the purse, or she would have hit them and they would have been down and waiting for. She would have called. They would have been out. She would have been calling the police. I hit him with my purse that he tried to steal. Oh dear! But the whole point is, it's just a perfect balance. How can you argue with that?
I can't.
I can't either. It's just, I like the synchronicities that show up on the path. I'll be honest. That seems to be one of the joys of working. Is things still surprise me the way they dovetail on me when I'm not looking.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
If that makes any sense when I put it like that.
Well, yeah. And that's what I was saying about this Ingress ritual, in that while it superseded my normal dark nights, there was a reason and a purpose, and it was meant to.
Yes, and it was very contemplative and reflective in its own way, as you were reflecting on your growing awareness of water.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. So that was our Dark Nights of the Moon, non-Dark Nights of the Moon celebration.
Well, it was Dark Nights of the Moon celebrated by observing Ingress, which paid respect to the time that we have spent focused on the element of air, gave us a little closure there, and we're able to open a new episode of our relationship with the element of water.
I like it that way.
A new encounter with water.
Mm-hmm. It's like a serial.
And so, all in all, I'd say it was a pretty powerful and pretty magical dark moon.
I think so. A good time was had by all.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the fun part. As you and I have said, if it's not fun, then why the hell are we doing it?
Right. Absolutely.
So with that being said.
Yeah, I think I'm good on that.
Yeah, you can enjoy the liturgy, which is a praise poem about the element of water. And we'll read up and talk about ritualization of the everyday again.
Every day?
Yeah, what are you up to now?
I'm just teasing you, that's all.
I know, it's fine. I'll see you shortly.
Love you, dear.
Love you too. We define a liturgy as some sort of a collection of available pieces of commonly used ideas, phrases, or practices. In other words, this might encompass chants, circle casts, quarter calls, as well as many different things that can be considered some type of prayer. The path's definition of prayer is using words as a way to sanctify ourselves or something important to us. In other words, this is making the time to value self and our spiritual practices on a regular basis and with dedicated intent. Our prayers can potentially be spell work or words that are part of a ritual where we can reach out to the various energies that we work with. So we wrote a book called The Liturgy of the Path, a book of prayer for witches, as a way to share our liturgy with you. Here's a reading from this book that relates to what we are talking about tonight. We are entering the times of Samhain, where we believe that we connect more easily and deeply with the physical element of water. So today's liturgy selection is a praise poem to the element of water. Element of water, you are the flowing one, without which I would not have life. 3 distinct forms, one hard like earth, one hidden like air, and one always flowing. You douse the flames of fire, you sustain the earth. You are an essential partner of air. You are the water of life. I drink and feel my cells rejuvenate. My energy grows with each swallow. I feel the connections growing internally, and I give thanks. I hear the rain on my windows, the sound of drops pattering quietly, and my mind and feelings are stilled, no longer looping and sputtering, and I am calmed and focused. I sit by the flowing waters. Its rushing by soothes and energizes. My soul is at peace, and I give thanks. Element of water, one of the physical and sources of life. I give thanks for your gift to me and the world around me. So mote it be.
We've spent time talking about the overreaching energies and what we are doing to work with them on a larger scale. Now, let's take some time to consider what we call the ritualization of the everyday. These are the daily practices that we are doing to not only develop and reinforce our connections with these energies, but the little things that serve as reminders that we are witches and magical seekers during our walk through the everyday mundane. We'll also share some rituals that mark some of the personal happenings in our lives that can be enhanced by creating some sort of small or big ritual to acknowledge them.
This is where we contemplate what the hell we're doing on a regular basis at the moment, more than anything else, and what we want to share about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just rereading, as I often do, the segment that the listeners just heard to preface this section, and I get all done reading it, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I got nothing. Because it's been such a rich last few weeks with having, the equinox, and then finishing up some work that we did for the Times of Loafmas, and finishing up work that I had been trying to do with the element of air. And I had a dark moon this week. We celebrated an Ingress. And I realized that, and I'm gonna put this in the point of view of a coworker who works with me. But for the last 8 or 10 days, all you've heard about is stuff that's gone on in the last 2 or 3 days. So I have been so saturated and focused on the magical and the special days that I haven't really paid much attention to my little daily routines. And that right there is the lesson in it for me. I mean,
sometimes you have
what I'm doing right now you could call it a spell, in that I have changed my morning and evening medication regimen so that I can be more regular and more consistent with taking it, not only every day, but as close as I can to the same time and things like that. So I guess some of the stuff that I'm doing right now around my body and my physical health could probably be considered everyday stuff that I'm trying to ritualize by, and that's what I mean by that is like when I take my medicines, I bless the water, I bless the medicines, and I try to make that be something more than just down the hatch.
I have to laugh because I take blood pressure medicine myself, and I like to take it the first thing in the morning, so I keep it by the coffee maker. So I light my candle, I set the intent for the day, the coffee brews, and I get the pills out, and that way I know I took it.
I keep trying to convince my I really need to just put the coffee pot next to the bed. It would just be so simpler.
I know, but that means I have to get out of the bed.
That being my problem.
There you go. That starts somewhere. And somehow just that waiting for the current to do its thing and listening to it gurgle and lighting my little candle.
Well, and we're on the cycle here where, man, every morning I'm waking up and it's a little bit darker and a little bit darker.
And I have a kid who's leaving in the dark for the bus.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to December, he'll be leaving in the dark and coming home in the dark, and I'm convinced he'll never see daylight again.
There's another thing that I'm doing as an everyday ritual now, because it's a seasonal thing, but I have a ritual. I know there's all kinds of electronics. I mean, I'm a software engineer, so I get it that there are programmable things, but there is something soothing to me about I turn the thermostat down when I leave the house, and I turn the thermostat back up when I come back to the house. And there's just something tactile and emotional for me about knowing that the furnace has been turned down. So I have this new fancy digital plugs on the wall and talks to the network. I don't care. I still walk over to it when I'm grabbing my keys and whatnot in the morning, and I bump the temperature down a couple of degrees, and I bump it back up when I get home. So that actually is part of, long ago, a spell that I did with Susie about the security and safety of having a home.
There you go.
So I can call that out and say I've started doing that ritual every day again because it's this time of year. But yeah, we said a little thank you for keeping us warm last night, dear furnace, and I really count on you being here to be able to warm my way when I get home. And that is, if nothing else, ritualization the everyday.
Well, sure, because you're counting on that appliance to still be working later. I don't trust electronics as far as I can throw them some days, but you'll appreciate this. Ever since Ingress, I have been craving water to drink.
Okay.
So
right.
I have my fancy little cup.
But you haven't stopped breathing, right?
No, I have not.
Okay, good.
And like you said, there's a blessing that's in our liturgy where we bless the water that we're going to drink. And there's two of them. And then there's one where you can kind of permeate the energy you need into the water before you drink it as part of the blessing.
Yep. I remember reading that one.
And I am seriously using it to keep myself energized. And I know it's partially I don't drink enough water, so hydration perks me up.
Sure.
Physically. But spiritually, I like to feel the fact that I am consciously asking for that energy for, next 10 minutes, don't let me fall asleep kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Which makes perfect sense. And I have been attempting to pull a Witchstone card before I go to bed so that I have a heads up next morning, so that when it's that morning where I don't want to get up, it helps.
I could leverage that one myself.
Mm-hmm.
Read your card, get your day started, because it would. The issue is there's nothing in the first 30 seconds between me and my alarm clock that emotionally engages me.
Okay.
So I can sleepwalk, do that. But yeah, I could grab it. I could change my alarm. I have a smart alarm, and I could have the alarm say, "Hey, get up and draw a card and see what your day's going to be like."
And have the cards right next to the alarm clock, or you
absolutely
or the snooze button.
See, this is the reason we did this segment tonight.
Yeah, it is. It's a good way to do it. I like doing it the night before for me because I have my little ritual in the morning anyway.
Sure.
I like having that heads up because my day often goes sideways within the first hour just because I have people to get up.
Well, yeah, there's an old saying that every plan survives, or no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Yeah,
basically means you can practice and drill and practice and drill and practice and drill, and the first time a bullet goes zipping by you, it's all out the window and your training takes over.
Oh yeah, exactly. It has to, and quite frankly, at that hour of the morning, I am more concerned with is I'll call the kid who will sleep through every alarm known to man. And half the time I'm sending one of his brothers and sisters upstairs.
You got to get witchy with those kids.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can.
There every day.
Yeah, we're doing the best we can.
Right.
You know, but in general, I mean, they know I'm a witch, and they know I don't threaten them with magic, because I'm not that sort of witch. I'd like to some days. Like, when it's your turn to do the dishes, and you're arguing with me about it for the 47th time.
Okay.
But in general, I don't. You know, I'm not that sort of witch. But yeah, getting witchy might help. Like, I just sent a little zap through the ceiling to get him upright.
No, I didn't mean that kind of witchy.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. I took it there, right?
It's called plausible deniability, and I'm going to leave you with that.
Yes.
All right.
And it doesn't help that he's one of these kids who you can have an entire conversation with him and he's sound asleep. But yes. But
hey, one of those.
Yeah. But just, you could have people try blessing their water, so that might be fun.
You could bless water and throw it on your kids and they'd wake up wet.
There you go.
All right. I think that's silly enough for one day.
I hope so. So with that being said, Sir Dave, you're going to do your Witchstones reading, but in the meantime, may you find mirth and reverence in all things.
Be safe, be kind, and be loved.
Witchstone cards are a divination system created by the two young crones, consisting of 32 cards depicting various witchcraft archetypes and concepts. They are divided into two sets, 16 concrete and 16 concept cards. The concrete cards relate to physical energies, including the 4 directions, phases of the moon, sabbats, and cross-quarter times. The concept cards deal with physical activities and the energy of actions, results, and mental concepts or witchcraft practices and the energy of thoughts, processes for spiritual growth and change. They are read as seen energy with the picture visible, or unseen energy, which is the card back, which can give each one a different focus. So with that, to finish up the episode, Dave, our sage, is giving a small Witchstone reading to give you a heads up about some potential energies that may show up over the next few days, or just to give you some food for thought. Hey Dave, what's in the cards tonight?
For reference, while I'm shuffling up here, I'm reading using the Witchstones Oracle deck, which you can easily find at twoyoungcrones.com/Witchstones. And if you go to that page, there's even a link to the quick reference guide that I'm working on little by little in between projects. So again, that's twoyoungcrones/Witchstones. All right, and we have the shuffle, and I'm going to again continue the tradition where I'm going to do a 3-card reading, and this reading will be the now, a week from now, and a month, or I like to refer to it as a moon from now. So that's the kind of reading we're doing tonight. And, ooh, interesting. All 3 cards came in the unseen position, so a lot of introspective energy. We're just coming out of a dark moon, so that's reflected a little bit. Our card right now is the East, one of the first cardinal direction cards, and in the unseen position, the East represents air energy, garbled communications, and needing to catch our breath. I think this might be a little bit skewed to the fact that I just finished doing both an episode and a ritual in which I sort of closed some connections with the element of air. So maybe that's the element of air just whispering goodbye to me, having that in the unseen energy. Here again, it's a busy time of year, and there's the potential for garbled communications. And sometimes this is just that reminder that we do need to stop and catch our breath, take a minute for body, mind, and spirit. So in the week ahead, we have the card for layers and levels. And again, this was also in the unseen or face down position. The unseen energy for the layers and levels cards is shadow work, unwillingness or a fear around looking deeper, and a focus on ourselves and not on others. This tells me that over the next week, there's going to be some uncomfortable growth for some or all of us, and we're going to have a tendency to focus too much on ourselves, kind of get that I'm the main character mentality. And I see this just as a warning to remember to be mindful of my place in the universe, or our place in the universe, and not be too focused on what's going on at the time. And then our in the next month or moon card, I got the card for Beltane, but unseen. And that is a time of growth, but something is missing. There's something where we need to look to root causes. I'm trying to think of what's coming up in the next month for holidays. We're getting up near Samhain, but in this case, it seems to me with both the next week and the next moon that there's going to be a lot of growth, a lot of passionate energy, and in some cases, just I feel like something is missing or not quite complete or being communicated completely. And that's what I get from the cards this evening. So with that, again, you can find the Witchstone Oracle deck at twoyoungcrones.com/witchstones, all one word. And until I talk to you again, be safe, be kind, and be loved.
Well, it looks like the coffee cups are empty for this week. We hope you join us again next Tuesday. But you can find us at our website, twoyoungcrones.com. That's the number 2, Young Crones.
We'd love to have you join our growing online Discord community. Check out our new Patreon presence. Just look for Young Crones Cafe. Through Patreon, you'll be able to make it to our Discord. We are also Young Crones Cafe on Twitter and Facebook.
Until then, remember, we are witches who work with energies to effect change.
We are believers in both immanent and transcendent divine.
We are celebrants of the passage of the solar and lunar cycles.
We are hedge walkers who pass back and forth between the worlds of the magical and the mundane.
We are seekers of knowledge.
And we are walkers of a spiritual tradition we call the Path.
So mote it be.
So mote it be.